Racist police officer arrests black pregnant woman, unaware she is a police captain in labor. Have you ever wondered how far someone in power would go, all because of a snap judgment based on race? What would you do if you saw it unfold right in front of you? It was a bright afternoon, the sun shining, the roads surprisingly clear. Cassandra, a highly respected police captain, was on her way home. 7 months pregnant and feeling some discomfort, she just wanted to get back as quickly as possible. But she had no idea that what should have been a peaceful ride was about to become a nightmare. Suddenly, sirens pierced the air. A police cruiser sped up behind her, lights flashing. Cassandra glanced at her speedometer. She was slightly over the limit. She slowed down, pulled over, and waited. Her heart pounded, not because of the stop itself, but because as a black woman, she knew how often these encounters turned dangerous. Was today the day she became another statistic? As she rolled down her window, the officer approached, his expression cold, his posture rigid. He didn't bother with the usual questions, no greetings, no explanations. Instead, he went straight to accusations. License and registration. You were speeding, he snapped, his tone sharp and condescending. Cassandra calmly handed over her documents, attempting to explain. Officer, I'm pregnant. I was just trying to get home quickly. I know I was a little over the limit, but pregnant or not, you broke the law. He cut her off, barely glancing at her ID. But even when he didn't seem to recognize her name or rank. His mind was already made up. What did he see first? A speeding driver or a black woman? Step out of the vehicle, he ordered. Cassandra's eyes widened. Is that really necessary? I told you I'm a police captain and I'm pregnant. The officer's expression darkened. His hand hovered near his holster. I don't care who you are. Get out of the car now, or I'll make you. What would you do? Comply, knowing the danger, or stand your ground? A wave of nausea rolled over Cassandra, not just from her pregnancy, but from the sheer humiliation. She had dedicated years to fighting for justice, only to now be reduced to just another black woman in the eyes of an officer who saw her as less than. If she, a captain, was being treated this way, what chance did others have? Slowly, she stepped out of the car. The officer immediately grabbed her arm, his grip too tight for someone in her condition. I said move, he barked, yanking her toward his squad car. Can you imagine being treated like a criminal when you've done nothing wrong? By now, a small crowd had gathered. Some pulled out their phones, recording. Others watched in stunned silence. How far would this officer go, drunk on power and prejudice? Without warning, he shoved Cassandra against his cruiser. You're under arrest for resisting, he said, slapping handcuffs on her wrists. Her swollen belly pressed against the cold metal, and she winced in pain. Would you stay silent if you witnessed this? How far would this have to go before someone stepped in? As Cassandra tried to speak, her voice fell on deaf ears. The officer seemed to enjoy the control he had over her. People like you always think you can get away with anything, he muttered. That was the breaking point. People like me? Cassandra shot back. You mean black people? The officer sneered. I don't care who you are. You're under arrest. He yanked her toward the back seat, ignoring her discomfort, ignoring the murmurs of disapproval from the crowd. Then, just when things seemed like they couldn't get worse, another police car pulled up. A higher-ranking officer stepped out, his expression shifting from confusion to horror as he took in the scene. What's going on here? He demanded. Still handcuffed, Cassandra lifted her head. I'm Captain Cassandra Lewis. This officer arrested me for speeding, completely ignoring the fact that I'm a pregnant police officer. The supervisor's gaze darted to the arresting officer, who suddenly looked pale. I didn't know, he stammered. You didn't know because you didn't care to listen, Cassandra said, her voice steady despite everything. You saw my skin color and made assumptions. How do you think this officer felt now, realizing he had just arrested someone far outranking him, for no valid reason? The crowd murmured as the supervisor quickly unlocked the handcuffs. Captain Lewis, I apologize for this disgraceful treatment. I will handle this personally, he said, his tone sincere. The arresting officer stood frozen, panic creeping into his face. He could lose his job, face legal action, or worse. I didn't mean any harm. I was just following procedure, he muttered weakly. Procedure? Cassandra's eyes flashed. Procedure would have been a respectful conversation. You didn't follow procedure. You followed your bias. What consequences should he face for such an abuse of power? The supervisor pulled the officer aside, his voice low but firm. This is going on your record. Prepare for suspension, and possibly worse. You crossed a line today. Reality crashed down on the officer. He hadn't just humiliated an innocent black woman, he had humiliated a police captain, someone who could have been his ally had he shown basic respect. Cassandra stood tall. Despite the injustice, she refused to let it break her. This fight wasn't just about her. It was about every black woman, every pregnant woman, every person who had ever been unfairly targeted by those in power. What would you do in her shoes? Would you let it slide? Or would you stand up for justice? In the end, this officer's actions would serve as a harsh reminder that racism, bias, and prejudice still run deep, even among those sworn to protect and serve. But one thing was certain, Cassandra wasn't letting this end here. She would press charges, speak out, and ensure this officer never forgot the day he tried to arrest a black pregnant woman, unaware she was a police captain.